After my husband invited my mother-in-law over with all 6 grandkids, I made sure he'd regret it. Just whip them up some sandwiches and get the hot tub ready, my mother-in-law declared as she swept into my pristine home with 6 shrieking grandchildren trailing behind her. I stood frozen, spatula still in hand from making my own lunch. You know the routine, honey, my husband Jake added with a chuckle, not even looking up from his phone. They both laughed like it was the funniest joke in the world. I walked out that door. 4 days later, Jake called me in complete panic. Stella, you have to come back. It's an absolute nightmare. My name is Stella Rodriguez, and I'm 41 years old. I used to be a successful interior designer before I became a stay-at-home wife, thinking I was choosing peace and stability. Boy, was I wrong. Jake and I have been married for 12 years. He works as a regional sales manager for a major sporting goods company, but more importantly, he's a devoted mama's boy to his mother, Beverly. I learned early on that "Mom always says" was his go-to response for everything. At first, it seemed harmless enough. Mom always says you shouldn't put tomatoes in the refrigerator. Mom always says natural cleaners work better than store-bought chemicals. I brushed it off as quirky family traditions. But slowly, I realized Beverly wasn't just his mother. She was the unwelcome third party in our marriage. We lived in Phoenix, Arizona, just 20 minutes from Beverly's sprawling ranch-style house, and she treated our home like her personal vacation rental. No phone calls, no advance notice, just the sound of her spare key in our front door and her sing-song voice calling, "Hello there. Hope I'm not interrupting anything important." She always was interrupting something important. I could be on a client video call, soaking in the bath after a long day, or simply trying to enjoy a quiet cup of coffee. None of it mattered to Beverly. She'd waltz in and start rearranging our spice rack or commenting on how the baseboards needed a good scrubbing. And Jake? He'd practically glow with happiness. "She's just being helpful," he'd say as she critiqued my choice of throw pillows or suggested I switch to a different brand of laundry detergent. "She's not being helpful," I finally snapped one Tuesday afternoon. "She's conducting military-style inspections of our home." "She means well, Stella. She's family." I swallowed my frustration over and over again, but it was slowly eating away at everything I thought I knew about myself. The holidays were particularly brutal. Beverly insisted on celebrating every major holiday at our house: Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, the 4th of July. "I'll handle all the planning," she'd chirp sweetly. What that really meant was she'd arrive with a frozen turkey that wasn't defrosted, store-bought pies still in their plastic containers, and a detailed list of elaborate side dishes that somehow always became my responsibility to prepare. "You're home anyway," she told me once, as if my time had no value whatsoever. "And you're such a natural hostess, dear." Natural hostess. I nearly choked on my cranberry sauce. I hadn't spent a single holiday with my own parents in San Diego in 5 years. Every time I brought up visiting my family for the holidays, Jake had the same response: "We have obligations here, babe. My family depends on us hosting. Your parents understand." My parents. They'd stopped asking when we'd visit for Christmas. They'd stopped mentioning how they'd love to have us for Thanksgiving. My relationship with them had dwindled to brief phone calls and birthday cards sent through the mail. Meanwhile, Jake's extended family, all 17 cousins, aunts, uncles, and their screaming children, treated our home like their personal event venue. The constant intrusions chipped away at our marriage piece by piece. Our conversations became shorter. Our date nights disappeared entirely. We started sleeping in separate bedrooms, initially because Jake's snoring kept me awake, but eventually because we'd become strangers sharing nothing more than a mortgage and a last name. I felt like I was disappearing, becoming smaller and smaller until I was just the woman who made sure there were enough folding chairs for Beverly's surprise family gatherings. Then, 6 months ago, everything changed. Jake burst through the front door one evening waving an official-looking letter. "Senior Regional Manager," he announced, practically dancing around our kitchen. "They're giving me the Southwest Territory. Huge promotion, amazing salary bump." He grabbed a bottle of champagne from our wine fridge. "We should celebrate properly. How about we finally buy that house you loved in Scottsdale?" I blinked in surprise. He was talking about the gorgeous adobe-style house we'd toured 8 months earlier, the one with the mountain views and the private courtyard. The one that was 45 minutes away from Beverly's house. Not nearly far enough for my taste, but it might as well have been on Mars compared to our current 20-minute proximity. "Really?" I whispered. "You've earned it, Stella. We've earned it. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of hope. The new house was everything I'd dreamed of. Southwestern architecture with exposed wooden beams, terracotta tile floors, and a stunning kitchen with granite countertops. It had a private courtyard with a built-in fire pit and enough space for me to finally have the art studio I'd always wanted. For 3 blissful weeks, I actually believed we were getting a fresh start. No more Beverly using her spare key. No more surprise family invasions. I even sent a text to my parents, finally settled in the new place. Maybe you could visit this spring. But peace never lasts when you're married to a mama's boy. It was a Tuesday morning when Jake dropped the bombshell. I was watering my new herb garden in the courtyard, finally feeling like this space was truly mine. Hey, heads up, he said casually, not even looking up from his breakfast burrito. Mom's coming over this weekend. She wants to see the new place. That's fine, I said carefully, setting down my watering can. Just her. Jake suddenly became very interested in his orange juice. Well, she's bringing some of the kids along. What kids? You know, her sister's grandkids. The twins from cousin Rachel, little Emma and Noah from Rebecca's family, and I think 2 more from Linda's daughter. Maybe 6 total. I stared at him. She's bringing 6 children to our new house. He shrugged like it was no big deal. They're just kids, Stella. What's the problem? The problem was that our new house had cream-colored carpeting, glass coffee tables, and expensive artwork I'd finally been able to display without worrying about sticky fingers. The problem was that Beverly had watched children before, which meant she'd sit in our kitchen drinking coffee while chaos erupted around her. Remember Thanksgiving at the old house? I reminded him. When someone flushed an entire dinner roll down the toilet and we had to call an emergency plumber. Jake rolled his eyes. You're being dramatic. If it bothers you that much, just hang out in the studio or something. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Just hang out in my own home while strangers destroy it. They're not strangers. They're family. Saturday morning arrived like a recurring nightmare. At exactly 9:30 a.m., I heard car doors slamming in our driveway. Through the front window, I watched 6 children aged roughly 4 to 10 pour out of Beverly's minivan like circus performers escaping from a tiny car. Beverly followed, wearing a flowing floral dress and her biggest smile. She had 3 backpacks slung over her shoulders and was already calling out instructions to the kids before they reached the front door. The doorbell rang. I was still holding my morning coffee, still wearing my pajamas, completely unprepared for what was about to happen. 6 children exploded past me into the foyer like a small tornado. Beverly swept in behind them, her arms spread wide as she surveyed our new living room. Stella. Oh honey, this place is absolutely gorgeous. You've done such beautiful work with the decorating. Then, without missing a beat, I brought the little angels. They've been so excited to see Aunt Stella's new house. Now, they're pretty hungry from the drive. Could you fix them some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? And we'll need the hot tub warmed up after lunch. They got into some mud at the park on the way over. I stood there, coffee mug frozen halfway to my lips, watching one of the older boys run his chocolate-covered hands along my cream-colored walls while a little girl started pulling books off our carefully arranged shelves. I didn't know we were having guests today, I managed to say, my voice barely controlled. Beverly laughed. Oh sweetie, don't be so rigid. You'll figure it out. You always do. That's when Jake appeared from upstairs, dressed in his weekend golf clothes. Hey everyone. Looks like the cavalry arrived, he said cheerfully. Then, looking directly at me, he added, Babe, if it's too overwhelming, you can always just go hide in your studio for a while. Beverly's laugh was sharp and triumphant. Exactly. Stella, if you can't handle it, just leave us to enjoy ourselves. They both laughed. Actually laughed. One of the children had found our remote control and was rapidly flipping through channels at maximum volume. Another was climbing on our glass coffee table. I heard something shatter in the kitchen. Beverly didn't even turn around. Something inside me finally snapped. I took a long, deep breath and set my coffee mug down on the side table with deliberate precision. The sound cut through the chaos like a bell. Without saying a word, I turned and walked upstairs to our bedroom. Behind me, I could hear Jake calling out, Stella? Where are you going? But I didn't answer. In our walk-in closet, I pulled out the large suitcase we'd used for our honeymoon 12 years ago. Methodically, calmly, I began folding clothes into it. A week's worth of outfits. My favorite books. My laptop and portfolio materials. Toiletries. The silver necklace my grandmother had given me, the one Beverly always said looked too flashy for everyday wear. Jake appeared in the doorway just as I was zipping the suitcase closed. "What the hell are you doing?" he asked, looking genuinely confused. I met his eyes steadily. "You told me to leave. So I'm leaving." "You're seriously doing this over some kids visiting?" I lifted the suitcase off the bed. "I'm doing this because my husband just told his mother she could bring 6 unsupervised children into our home without asking me, and when I expressed concern, you both told me to disappear." "You're overreacting." "I'm finally reacting," I corrected him. "There's a difference." Jake stepped closer, his voice dropping to that condescending tone I'd grown to hate. "Come on, babe. Where are you even going to go?" "Somewhere I'm treated like a person instead of unpaid household staff." Beverly appeared behind Jake, her face twisted with indignation. "Stella, let's not make a scene in front of the children. Be reasonable." I looked at both of them standing in my bedroom doorway, him in his golf clothes, her in her floral dress, both of them looking at me like I was the problem. "You brought 6 children into my home without permission and told me to hide in my own house." The scene was already made. I'm just removing myself from it. I walked past both of them, suitcase in hand, and headed for the stairs. Behind me, I could hear frantic whispering, but I didn't turn around. In the living room, the chaos had reached new heights. Someone had spilled grape juice on our cream carpet. The books were now scattered across the floor. One of the younger children was crying because another child had taken his toy truck. I walked through it all like I was moving through a dream. At the front door, I turned back one last time. Jake was standing at the top of the stairs, Beverly beside him, both of them staring at me in shock. "Stella, come on. Don't be ridiculous," Jake called down. I opened the door and stepped into the bright Arizona sunshine. "I'm not being ridiculous," I called back. "I'm being smart." And I walked out. For the first time in years, nobody laughed. I didn't cry as I drove away from the house. I thought I would. I'd imagined this moment so many times, and in my head, it was always accompanied by dramatic tears and overwhelming sadness. Instead, there was just silence and the sound of my Honda Civic's tires on the hot asphalt. I spent the first night at a Hampton Inn near Sky Harbor Airport. Nothing fancy, just a clean bed that belonged only to me and a small table where I could sit without worrying about someone needing me to make dinner or clean up after them. I ordered Chinese takeout, sweet and sour chicken that I ate straight from the container while watching HGTV. For the first time in months, nobody criticized my eating habits or asked me to change the channel. The next morning, I called my parents in San Diego. Mom answered on the second ring. "Stella." Her voice carried that mother's intuition that something was wrong. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes, and tried to find the words. "Can I come home for a while?" I finally whispered. There was no hesitation. "Of course, sweetheart. How soon can you get here?" They met me at the San Diego airport 6 hours later. Dad was waiting at the end of the terminal in his favorite Chargers jersey, arms crossed but eyes soft with concern. Mom clutched her purse in one hand and held a thermos of her famous chamomile tea in the other. The hug lasted forever, and I let it. Back at their house in La Jolla, the same house where I'd grown up, where my childhood bedroom still had my old theater posters on the walls, I finally felt like I could breathe again. We sat in their kitchen while Dad made me a grilled cheese sandwich I didn't ask for and Mom bustled around making sure I had everything I needed. The familiar sounds of their routine, Dad humming while he cooked, Mom organizing things that didn't need organizing, felt like a lullaby. After I showered and changed into one of Mom's oversized UC San Diego sweatshirts, I finally started talking. Not all at once, but in waves. How Beverly would show up unannounced and treat our home like her personal kingdom. How Jake never defended me or even seemed to notice how his mother's behavior affected me. How I'd missed 5 years of holidays with them because we were always hosting Beverly's extended family circus. How I couldn't remember the last time someone asked me what I wanted and actually listened to the answer. "I want a divorce," I said out loud for the first time. Neither of my parents gasped or tried to talk me out of it. Mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Dad simply asked, "Do you need help finding a lawyer?" I nodded, feeling a weight I'd carried for years finally starting to lift. The next few days passed in a blur of phone calls and research. My college roommate Maria recommended a family attorney named Catherine Walsh, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd built her reputation representing women in exactly my situation. Catherine's office overlooked the harbor, and she listened to my story with the focus of a surgeon and the compassion of a therapist. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and smiled. Do you have any documentation of your mother-in-law's intrusive behavior? Text messages, emails, anything that shows the pattern? I pulled out my phone and started scrolling. Screenshots of Beverly's demanding texts. Make sure you have gluten-free options ready. Tommy has a sensitive stomach. Grocery lists she'd sent me for parties she'd planned without consulting me. Even a few voice recordings I'd made after particularly awful encounters, just to prove to myself that I wasn't going crazy. Catherine's eyebrows rose as she reviewed everything. This is excellent. What we have here isn't just an emotional case, it's a documented pattern of interference in your marriage. For the first time in years, I felt proud of myself. Like I'd passed a test I didn't even know I was taking. The call came on a Thursday morning. I was sitting on my parents' back patio, drinking coffee and watching the neighbors' golden retriever chase butterflies in their garden, when my phone buzzed with Jake's name. I'd been in San Diego for 6 days. 6 peaceful, quiet days where nobody had demanded anything from me. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. By the 5th call, I answered, not out of concern for Jake, but to make the noise stop. What do you want? My voice was flat, emotionless. Stella. Oh, thank God. I need you to come home. Please, you have to come back. I waited. It's a complete disaster, he continued, his voice cracking with panic. The kids destroyed everything. I mean everything. There's crayon marks on the walls, juice stains ground into the carpet. Someone broke the glass coffee table. Beverly tried to give them a bath in our hot tub and slipped getting out. She's fine, mostly fine, but she's wearing a neck brace now and threatening to sue the homeowner's insurance. Jake, I interrupted. Why are you telling me this? Because I can't handle this. You just left me in the middle of. I left you in the middle of what you allowed to happen, I said calmly. I didn't invite those children. I didn't tell Beverly she could use our house as a daycare center. I didn't laugh when your wife expressed concerns about the situation. Silence. Then, quietly, I'm sorry, Stella. I really am. I closed my eyes, feeling something settle in my chest. I'll come back. You will? Yes, but only to get what I need. What do you mean? I mean I'm not staying, Jake. I'm coming back for one thing, your signature on divorce papers. Catherine and I flew back to Phoenix 3 days later. Jake had texted that he would handle everything maturely and be reasonable about the whole situation. I knew better than to expect that. Beverly answered the door when we arrived. She was indeed wearing a cervical collar, and her usual bright smile looked forced and brittle. Oh, Stella. Honey, it's been absolutely chaotic without you here. I'm so glad you've come to your senses. I hadn't. Jake appeared behind her, looking smaller somehow. Not physically diminished, just deflated, like a balloon someone had let half the air out of. We sat in the dining room, the same room where Beverly used to hand me printed menus for holidays I didn't want to host. I placed the divorce documents on the table while Catherine sat silently beside me, her presence sharp and professional. You're really going through with this, Jake said, staring at the papers like they might spontaneously combust. I am. I thought we could work things out. You didn't give me a chance to fix this. I looked around the room, at the faint crayon marks still visible on the baseboards, at the water stains on the hardwood floor, at the empty space where our glass coffee table used to be. You told me to leave, I said simply. Multiple times, in front of your mother, while children destroyed our home. What exactly did you think I should have given you a chance to fix? He turned to Beverly for support, but for once in her life, she had nothing to say. I stood up. I need 30 minutes to collect my remaining things. Then Catherine and I will be returning to our hotel. Jake nodded miserably. As we walked to the rental car, Catherine said, You handled that perfectly. I didn't yell, I observed. No, you didn't. You negotiated your freedom like a pro. That night, back in our hotel room, I received an email from Jake. Just one line, I signed them. The scanned documents were attached. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed my response. Thank you. I wish you well. Then I closed the laptop and slept better than I had in years. I never looked back. Not at the house, not at the memories, not at the mess I'd finally walked away from. After Catherine filed the papers and Jake returned them with his signature, I let go completely. I didn't respond to his attempts to text me. I didn't answer Beverly's phone calls or listen to her voicemails, though I did see the subject line of one email. Stella, I just don't understand how you could abandon your family responsibilities. I deleted it without reading further. Let them figure it out themselves. Back in San Diego, my new life began to take shape quietly and naturally. My parents' guest room became my sanctuary. Mom stocked the refrigerator with foods she remembered me loving in college: Greek yogurt with honey, almond butter, dark chocolate-covered almonds. Dad left job listings on my nightstand like he used to leave encouraging notes before my high school exams. A boutique marketing firm in downtown San Diego was hiring a creative director, part-time work focusing on branding for sustainable businesses and local nonprofits. I dusted off my portfolio, added some freelance projects I'd done over the years, and sent in my resume on impulse. They called me back the same day. The interview was the next morning. I walked into that meeting wearing confidence I'd forgotten I possessed, speaking like someone who knew her worth even if she temporarily misplaced it. I got the job. Working again gave me something Jake never could: my identity back. I wasn't someone's wife or unpaid housekeeper or the woman apologizing for Beverly's opinions. I was Stella Rodriguez. Yes, I started using my maiden name again, and I was exceptional at what I did. I'd forgotten the rush of solving creative problems, the satisfaction of seeing a client's face light up when they saw the perfect logo, the joy of waking up excited about the day ahead. I found a small apartment in Pacific Beach, 2 bedrooms with big windows and a balcony overlooking the ocean. I painted one wall turquoise, my favorite color, which Beverly had always said was too bold for a living space, and bought a bookshelf that I didn't have to share with golf magazines or Beverly's self-help books about managing difficult daughters-in-law. Every Saturday morning, I walked to the farmer's market at Hillcrest and bought flowers for my kitchen table. Not because anyone expected me to, but because I wanted to. I wasn't rebuilding my old life. I was creating something entirely new. As for Jake, I didn't ask for updates, but mutual friends couldn't help themselves. He'd quit his job 2 months after the divorce was finalized, claiming he needed time to reassess his priorities. Last I heard, he was living with Beverly in her 2-bedroom condo in Tempe, sleeping on a pull-out couch and working part-time at a sporting goods store. The extended family had apparently started avoiding Beverly's gatherings after word got out about the chaos at our house. Turns out, nobody actually enjoyed being ordered around by her. I'd just been the only one willing to endure it for 12 years. Funny how clarity works when you finally step outside the situation. 1 year to the day after I walked out of that house, I hosted my parents for dinner at my apartment. I made seafood paella from scratch, a dish Beverly had always criticized as too complicated for a simple family meal, and we ate it on my balcony as the sun set over the Pacific. Dad brought a bottle of wine and cloth napkins he'd bought specifically for the occasion. Mom brought her famous Tres Leches cake and stories about the book club she joined. We talked about travel plans, my work projects, even politics, subjects I'd once avoided because Jake found them too controversial for dinner conversation. For the first time in over a decade, I felt like a complete person. Not someone's wife, not someone's daughter-in-law, not someone playing a role. Just me. Before they left, Dad hugged me a little tighter than usual. You did the hardest thing, Mija. Most people stay in situations that make them smaller. You chose to grow. Mom added, you're finally living your life on your own terms. That's all we ever wanted for you. People sometimes ask if I regret the divorce. If I miss being married. If I ever wonder what might have happened if I'd stayed and tried to work things out. Here's what I tell them: I regret how long I waited. I regret every holiday I spent serving Jake's extended family while my own parents ate dinner alone. I regret the years I wasted trying to be pleasant and accommodating for people who never saw me as anything more than free labor. But I don't regret walking out that door. I don't regret packing that suitcase and refusing to clean up messes I didn't make. I don't regret choosing my own peace over everyone else's comfort. And most of all, I don't regret finally standing up, turning that doorknob, and saying, if only to myself, this time, I'm choosing me. I did choose me. And it turns out I love who I am when I'm free to be myself. The ocean breeze carries the scent of jasmine through my apartment windows as I write this, and I can hear the sound of waves crashing against the shore. Tomorrow, I'm meeting a client who wants to rebrand her sustainable jewelry business. Next weekend, my parents and I are driving up to Napa Valley for a wine tasting trip. My life is full of possibility now, and every single day belongs to me. And that's the most beautiful freedom of all.